Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking the deeply impactful world of osteoarthritis. If you're looking for the definitive guide to understanding the mechanics of joint degeneration, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to break down the science, decode those deceptive symptoms, and look at exactly how we can preserve our joints. Get ready, because we're about to rethink everything you thought you knew about joint wear and tear.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're taking a clear macro to micro journey today. We'll start by understanding the foundational science of osteoarthritis, then we'll zoom in on specific joints, the knee, the hip, and the hands, before wrapping up the whole shebang with treatments and actionable care strategies.
So Section 1, Understanding Osteoarthritis. Let's lay the foundation.
Now, osteoarthritis isn't just some minor everyday ache. It is actually the single most frequent joint disease in adults, and it carries massive socioeconomic consequences across the globe. By definition, arthrosis is a progressive degeneration of the joint, caused by a slow breakdown of the cartilage. The medical term for that is chondrolysis. The absolute key takeaway here: this isn't some fiery, systemic infection spreading through your bloodstream. No, it's a slow, mechanical wear and tear process happening right at the protective cushion of your bones.
And what we're looking at right here brilliantly illustrates that crucial tug of war. Normal cartilage is this beautiful, resilient matrix of type 2 collagen and water-loving proteoglycans. It's got high elasticity and resistance. But with arthrosis, degradation just totally outpaces matrix synthesis. The cartilage cells, the chondrocytes, literally start dying off, causing these deep fissures. Eventually, the raw subchondral bone underneath is left completely exposed. It's an absolute structural collapse.
So, you might be wondering, when does this actually happen? Well, crossing the age of 50 is the major biological threshold for primary osteoarthritis. And here is a kind of surprising statistical quirk. While age is the undeniable heavy hitter, women are significantly more affected than men, particularly when it comes to the knees and hands.
But what if you aren't over 50? Well, secondary arthrosis hits earlier and it hits much harder. This happens when the cartilage is subjected to extreme unnatural conditions. We're talking physical trauma from high-impact sports, repetitive professional mechanical stress, like constantly carrying heavy loads at work, or even structural architectural defects in the joints. Even metabolic conditions like hemochromatosis can act as a catalyst. Basically, anything that messes with the pristine properties of your normal cartilage puts you on the fast track to secondary arthrosis.
Let's move on and see how this builds in Section 2, the knee, medically known as gonarthrosis.
The knee is the absolute most common site for this disease, simply because it's our primary load-bearing joint. It takes a beating. It's highly prevalent in women during peri- and postmenopause, which points to a strong hormonal influence. Also, carrying extra weight acts as a direct mechanical multiplier of force on that cartilage matrix. And unfortunately, when one knee goes, the other one usually follows. Gonarthrosis is bilateral, meaning it affects both knees in 2/3 of all cases. Okay, so how do doctors actually spot this? Clinically, you'll feel functional signs: mechanical pain that gets worse when you're walking on uneven ground, stiffness when you try to rise from a chair, and eventually a limp. But radiologically, doctors look for what's known as the classic tripod. First, joint space narrowing. The cartilage is literally disappearing. Second, subchondral sclerosis, which is the bone underneath hardening from the sheer impact. And third, osteophytes. Those are bony spurs growing at the edges as your joint desperately tries to repair itself.
Moving smoothly along to Section 3, the hip, or coxarthrosis.
Now, this is the primary cause of mechanical hip pain after 50. So the crucial point is, it is incredibly deceptive. You might naturally assume hip arthrosis hurts right on the outside of your hip, right? Or maybe in the glutes. It can, but overwhelmingly, the pain actually originates in the groin fold. It then radiates straight down the front of the thigh, sometimes projecting all the way down to the knee. It's so common for someone to think, oh, I just pulled a groin muscle, when in reality, they're experiencing early-stage hip degeneration. Clinically speaking, we see progressive groin pain, a limp, and a significantly reduced walking perimeter, which just means you simply can't walk as far as you used to. And radiologically, it is the exact same classic tripod we just saw in the knee. You get superior external space narrowing, subchondral condensation, and marginal osteophytes. By recognizing this tripod, you can start to see exactly how physicians use pattern recognition to spot mechanical breakdown across totally different joints.
All right, let's zoom in on Section 4, the hands, or digital arthrosis.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that hand arthrosis is heavily influenced by genetics
And strangely enough, it frequently develops in tandem with knee osteoarthritis. If you have one, you're highly likely to develop the other. As the cartilage degrades in your fingers, bone spurs form these visible nodules. If the nodules form on the joints closest to your fingertips, the distal joints, they're called Haberden's nodes, and they cause some major visual deformations. If they hit the middle, proximal joints, they're called Bouchard's nodes, though those are a bit less frequent. A doctor can often diagnose this purely clinically, just by observing these typical deformations.
We also absolutely have to mention rhizarthrosis. This is a highly specific, very common localized breakdown right at the base of the thumb. It causes sharp pain at the thumb's root and the outer wrist, occasionally with a little pocket of fluid or effusion. It severely limits your everyday gripping motions. Suddenly battling a stubbornly tight pickle jar or just turning a house key becomes a surprisingly painful ordeal as that mechanical joint just grinds away.
Which brings us to Section 5, Treatments and Care. Let's talk solutions.
So, what's the plan? How do we intervene? Well, the standard medical escalation pipeline always starts with conservative steps. Step 1 is lifestyle changes, dropping weight to relieve mechanical stress, using orthotic insoles, or simply walking with a cane. If that fails, we escalate to Phase 2, medications. This ranges from basic analgesics and NSAIDs during flare-ups to viscosupplementation. That's literally injecting hyaluronic acid straight into the joint to act as a localized lubricant. Finally, when the cartilage is totally destroyed, Phase 3 is surgery. This means corrective osteotomies to realign the bone or replacing the joint entirely with a metal and plastic prosthesis.
But hey, before you ever get to the surgery stage, there is a massive emphasis on patient education. And these are highly practical, actionable daily rules pulled straight from the medical literature that you can use right now to preserve your cartilage today. First, avoid carrying loads heavier than 10% of your total body weight. Second, avoid prolonged standing, and just as importantly, avoid sitting for long periods with your legs tightly bent under you. And third, ditch any high heels over 5 centimeters. Seriously, they radically alter the architectural stress on your entire lower body.
So what does this all mean for you? The progression of osteoarthritis might feel kind of inevitable after 50, but it is heavily dictated by everyday mechanical stress. Take a look at your own daily habits right now. Are you inadvertently carrying more than 10% of your body weight in a heavy backpack or purse? Are you wearing narrow heels over 5 centimeters today? Every single bit of unnatural mechanical stress tips the scales of that cellular tug-of-war toward degradation. The tools to slow down the clock on your joints are completely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining